Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 522, written by Delicious Sort 7875. Secrets of my 5-year-old, the Master Ninja. My children swapped beds. Not possible. I did ask my son if he helped her. He said no. I tried to ask my daughter how she got up there. She said simply, "I don't know." When I asked again, she became a little annoyed and said it again. "I don't know." So I decided not to push it with her. Our bedrooms are right next to each other, and it was silent. Both our bedroom doors were open. I would have heard even the slightest noise. There's just no possible foreseeable way for me to not have heard anything. If my boy helped, they would have talked to each other. There would have been noise from the bed itself from the movement. I'm just at a loss for an explanation. The glitch. We recently bought a new bunk bed, and although my daughter, 3, has her own room, she prefers to sleep in the room with her brother, 5. My son usually sleeps on the top bunk, unless he's watching a movie before bed, as you can't see the TV from the top bunk. Occasionally, my daughter asks to sleep up top. My son isn't too fussy, so they alternate. However, my daughter cannot climb the ladder herself. She never has been able to, and is too scared to try when we try to teach her. So we need to lift her up to get her into bed and bring her down when she wakes up. Last night, I specifically remember putting my daughter to bed on the bottom bunk. I recall because we were watching a girly movie before bed, and after switching it off, I laid with her and dozed off myself for a short while. When I woke, I gave her a kiss, stroked her head, and went to my room, with my husband already asleep in bed. About 20 minutes later, I was in bed reading, and I heard my daughter stirring. It's extremely common. She wakes most nights for a little sooking, complaining, but goes back to sleep with a little soothing. I went in and laid on the bottom bunk to soothe her. While rubbing her back, I heard her grizzling/sooking again. But the voice wasn't next to me, it was above me. I felt my child's head and felt my son's short hair. He was perfectly sound asleep and tucked in. I had to climb up to the top to settle my daughter. Again, she was fully tucked in. She settled back to sleep, but I was thoroughly spooked. It definitely couldn't have been my husband that raised her up, as I was with him the entire time, since I left my daughter asleep in the bottom bunk. I confirmed the movie that I'd paused on the credits and switched the TV off. It was indeed a girly film we could only have watched together from the bottom bunk. Case notes, file number 522. When your daughter exclaimed twice that she just didn't know what happened, to me this is striking of a slight trauma or perhaps just general fear, like she's blocking out a weird event that happened, something she legitimately cannot explain. I'm sure you feel the same way regarding that. This is an unsettling thought, but what do we know has the ability to counter gravity? Alien technology, by so many accounts. If she had been abducted for a very short time, then quickly returned. Does your daughter sleep well, as in feel rested in the morning? This story is giving me the TNG Schisms vibes. One of my favorite standalone episodes of TNG, actually. The atmosphere, mostly from the soundtrack, but also the acting of Jonathan Frakes is superb, sets you on edge. In it, mild spoilers, there are aliens that are able to cross dimensions and abduct people from their beds into their own pocket dimension, from the Enterprise itself. The characters who are being abducted always feel unrested in the morning, like they closed their eyes and instantly it was time to wake up, no dreaming or REM sleep at all, leading to perpetual fatigue. Now, of course, that's just a TV show, but I do believe that aliens are there. I mean, it's kind of my thing. I love aliens, I love thinking about them. If they are there, they're studying us. They could easily wipe us out at any moment. We couldn't even defend ourselves, we wouldn't even be aware that we're under attack, really. So yeah, it's unsettling, but I don't necessarily think, if this is the case, that it's threatening. Bonus file. Written by XLazX88X. Secrets of my mother, the Master Electrician. When I was around 8 years old, My parents divorced, which resulted in my mom moving away and my sister, my dad, and I moving to a new house across town. My dad lives in the house, my sister moved away 12 years ago, and I only moved out of my dad's place just last year. When we moved into the house, I remember I had felt very uncomfortable about sleeping in my new bedroom. Something felt very unwelcoming about it, although it was just a normal bedroom in the house built in the 1960s. Due to this uncomfortable feeling, I would sleep on the landing for the first few weeks, until my dad got sick of me obstructing the toilet and bathroom doors and told me I couldn't sleep there forever. I reluctantly began sleeping in my room, and the feeling went away. Fast forward to when I was 14 years old, my mom very sadly lost her battle with cancer, and it hit us all very hard. My dad had never stopped loving my mom, so he became very depressed for the second time since the divorce. My sister and I had a very hard time coping with the loss of our beloved mom at such a young age, and there were arguments with my mom's side of the family as everyone went through a really tough time grieving. Then, really strange things began to happen in the weeks following my mom's passing. It started with the kettle blowing one day, and the next, the fridge stopped working. A week later, our oven ceased to function and the iron exploded as my dad ironed our school uniforms. My dad called out an electrician who checked all the wiring in the house and confirmed there was nothing wrong with it at all. We were all very confused as to why all of these appliances had suddenly broken on us, as if things weren't hard enough to cope with already in a single-parent family. Then, my sister's PC power supply exploded the next week. I was home alone one evening, and as I stood at the top of the stairs on the landing, the light bulb popped above my head. I remember the absolute fear that surged through me as I almost fell down the stairs in a panicked state. Dad called in a different electrician the next day. Nothing wrong with the wiring upstairs either. Everyone is becoming really bothered by these occurrences by this point. After all, how can this many electrical appliances seemingly fail for no reason at all? And yet there's nothing wrong with any of the wiring according to two different electricians. This leads up to the night I saw something I simply cannot understand. I remember I had gone to bed just like any other night when I awoke around 2 to 3 a.m. I would usually sleep right through the night unless I needed to go to the toilet or maybe get a drink if I woke up thirsty. I lay there a bit annoyed with waking without the need for either of these. And then I remember my feet suddenly felt very cold. I folded the quilt underneath my feet, and yet they were still very cold, as if I had stuck them in a fridge or walked on a very cold stone floor. I became restless with this, and then that is when I noticed a light in the middle of my room. At first, I believed it was a reflection coming through my bedroom window, so I sat up and checked to see if anyone was parking up outside in the street. Nothing. The whole street was dark, even the streetlight was off. I turned back into bed and looked back up at the ceiling. The light was still there, and this is when I noticed that the light wasn't on the ceiling. It was floating around a foot below it. I stared at it for about a minute and then rubbed my eyes, thinking that maybe it was seeing something that wasn't really there after not being awake for long. But I was wide awake and the light remained floating there, just below the ceiling. It wasn't an orb or a spherical shape, more like a small, flat, misty-looking patch of light. I got annoyed with trying to work out what this was and put it down to feeling tired, so laid back down in my bed and closed my eyes. I then felt the cold from my feet slowly shifting up my body until it reached my thighs, and then as I looked down at the foot of the bed trying to work out why I suddenly felt so cold, I saw it. At the foot of my bed, I saw a shape that looked almost like someone's shadow, but standing just slightly away from the wall. It wasn't facing me, but looking across the room, and the more I looked, the more I could see the shape of a silhouette of a face and body. I'm looking at the shape and staring at it in total amazement of trying to work out what it is I'm seeing. It's not flat to the wall like a shadow would be, but in the middle of the room I can see through it. It stands there for about a minute, and I'm thinking, is that a ghost? What is that? But I'm not frightened, and it doesn't make me feel threatened or that it's a malevolent presence. I was just sat there in complete disbelief of what I am seeing and amazed by it. The figure then very slowly as if hovering, moves across the bottom of my bed towards the other side of the room. I can then see it isn't black like a shadow, but in fact an almost translucent dark brown, almost like a dusty window. It's very hard to describe just how it looked, but that is the best I can try to explain its appearance. As it moves across my room, I watch it pass in front of the ajar door where the landing light is shining against the wall, and just like that, it's gone. I can't believe what I've seen, and I'm left sat up in bed, wide awake, amazed and stunned. I suddenly notice my legs don't feel cold, and that the light that was hovering below the ceiling is gone. I sat up for about an hour, trying to work out what I had just seen and experienced, and tried to go back to sleep, but was unable to from excitement. Eventually, I did fall asleep. I remember excitedly telling my sister about this the next day at breakfast, and she looked at me shocked before then telling me that she had heard someone whispering her name a few times while she was in bed several nights previous. She thought I had stood outside her door and was talking to her, but when she checked, nobody was there. My dad told me years later that he would lay in the living room on the floor watching TV late at night after Mom passed away, and felt as if someone walked behind him and noticed it suddenly felt cold whenever this happened. I never felt afraid living in that house, and after about a year, nothing else seemed to happen. Things would go missing a lot of the time, and then turn up in places you knew you would never have put them yourself. And when asked, nobody else had touched them or moved them. It was a very strange time, but I still can't believe what I saw. I don't know if you'd call it a ghost, and it certainly wasn't a reflection, but it definitely caught my attention.